Hello, I'm Jack Fink, and welcome to Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas.
This is CBS News Texas.
The Texas legislative session is heating up as lawmakers have now filed more key bills that are considered top priorities at the Capitol. We begin with school safety, which is once again a major focus after last year's tragedy in Uvalde when a gunman killed 19 students and their 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School. After announcing $600 million in spending, lawmakers have introduced a variety of school safety bills this week.
I do think that school safety is a top priority.
TJ Calloway is a parent who's also a PTA board member in the Richardson ISD. Like so many others, he's waited to see how state lawmakers would respond to last year's tragedy in Uvalde, where a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School. Now, 3 bills filed at the Texas Capitol are considered priority legislation by Speaker Dade Phelan and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. One measure would require an armed security guard on each campus. It would also ensure that there's a phone or some kind of electronic device in each classroom, so a teacher or a substitute teacher can immediately reach district personnel or first responders if there's an emergency. And there would be training required for teachers and others who interact with students regularly to identify those who are having mental health troubles. Legislation would also provide $15,000 for each school campus to use for installing physical barriers and security cameras or other equipment. There would also be an active shooter preparedness plan that would require prior coordination with law enforcement and a grant program to help schools funding larger infrastructure needs.
We definitely need to make sure we have sturdy locks on all classroom doors. We need to make sure that there's an emergency preparedness plan.
But he says he believes lawmakers need to address the root problem, gun safety, and place more restrictions on gun sales.
The problem we keep having with gun safety in this country and in the state is the guns. It's not the school building, it's not the teachers or anything like that.
Staying on public safety, a new bill is advancing in the state Senate that would make it easier for federal investigators to conduct more thorough background checks for gun buyers in Texas younger than 21. The new federal law requires investigators to check into the backgrounds of 18 to 20-year-olds to see if their mental health history should prevent them from buying a gun. Authorities are looking for anyone 16 or older who received court-ordered mental health services, among other things. Flo Rice was a substitute teacher who survived the deadly Santa Fe High School shooting in 2018. And she and her husband support a new state bill that would make it easier for the federal investigators to do the background checks.
There's a lot of things that need to be in place, and we'll never have them all in place. But any step in the right direction to save lives is important, every little step.
After Uvalde, a Texas House Legislative Committee studied the shooting and issued a report which found the problem is Texas does not have a centralized source for statewide mental health adjudication information in juvenile cases. That information is kept by the 450 district clerks and county clerks across Texas. So the new bill filed would require those clerks to report the appropriate mental health records to Texas DPS. It passed the Senate State Affairs Committee last week.
Members, these changes for juvenile mental health records age 16 and older merely align with federal law and again are meant to make the background check more thorough and hence make our communities and schools safer.
Dr. Lauren Gamble of the Texas Medical Association said a cross-section of doctors support the bill.
In Texas, we have doctors on both sides of the gun debate, but we are united in our desire to prevent firearm deaths and injuries.
Martha Constant, a co-owner of Target Master in Garland, agrees with the state's effort to make it easier for officials to conduct the extra background checks into 18 to 20-year-olds.
They may not need a firearm at this point, and they might need a little bit longer, a little bit more duration before they're ready to mentally take on that responsibility of owning a weapon.
It could speed up the process, and maybe somebody won't fall through the cracks.
Texas's abortion ban is once again making national headlines. 5 women, including 2 from North Texas, and 2 obstetricians are suing the state, saying the controversial law is putting lives at risk.
I don't think people realize what abortion means in the real world sometimes. This was a very wanted pregnancy.
Lauren and Jason Miller of Dallas are excited about their growing family. While they were expecting twin boys, doctors discovered as one of them developed, the other twin's life and Lauren's were becoming more at risk.
This is not an abortion that I wanted to have, but it is one that I needed. And it's what that I needed in order to give my other twin and myself the best chance at survival.
My heart broke into a million pieces. Excuse me.
At a news conference at the Texas Capitol, women, including Miller, spoke out about how the Texas abortion ban has hurt them and their families. In all, 5 women and 2 obstetricians from Texas have filed suit against the state and are being represented by the Center for Reproductive Rights.
Doctors and hospitals are turning patients away, even those in medical emergencies.
While there is an exception under the state ban to save the mother's life, she says the problem is doctors are scared they'll be prosecuted for performing an abortion and face time in prison, fines, and losing their medical licenses. The lawsuit comes during the Texas legislative session, and among the 6,600 bills filed already, 55 are related to abortion. A spokesman for the Texas Attorney General's office tells CBS News Texas that Ken Paxton sent guidance to providers after the new state law took effect last year. Jonathan Covey of Texas Values says the state's law isn't vague.
And doctors have enough leeway to make that call and understand when a woman's life is threatened.
But the women and their attorneys say they're seeking clarification in the law, in medical terms, so doctors know when they can take action to save women's lives. As for Lauren Miller, she remembers how she felt when doctors told her she had to travel out of state to get the abortion she needed.
I'm an 8th-generation Texan on both sides, so the feeling of having to flee my home state was just bizarre.
She and her husband are now looking forward to the arrival of their son in the next 2 weeks. A deadly shooting at Methodist Dallas Medical Center last year may lead to changes in state law. A Dallas legislator has proposed 3 bills, including one that would make it a crime if an offender on parole removes an ankle monitor. It comes after one of the deadliest incidents in Dallas last year. Here's our Steve Pickett.
Our hospitals need to be safe havens, and our hospital workers need to be protected.
Dallas State Representative Rafael Anchia used that statement today as the foundation for formulating a set of proposed state laws geared, he says, to stop a repeat of one of Dallas's most violent acts of 2022.
Throw the gun outside, man, come on.
It was October of last year. Paroled felon Nestor Hernandez entered Dallas Methodist Medical Center. Despite an electronic monitor attached to his ankle, Hernandez had clearance from a parole supervisor to visit the hospital. He's accused of shooting and killing 2 employees after allegedly beating his girlfriend in her hospital bed. Today, Anchia announced bills that would require notification to hospitals of parolee visits, parolees under electronic monitoring. Also, a call to make it a crime if an ankle monitor is tampered with or cut off. Right now, it is not.
The reality was that there were ample opportunities to prevent this tragedy. This was a failure at the state level, a failure of our legal structure, and so we're offering these bills to make sure that we stop those last best chances to interdict this murder and this tragedy.
Currently, there are approximately 4,000 people in Texas required to wear ankle monitors as a condition of parole, according to the Department of Criminal Justice. Dallas's police chief calls them ineffective for violent offenders, but he endorsed today the call to criminalize the act of removing a monitor.
It really is an extension of your jail cell. And by taking that monitor off, you're in essence escaping. And to deal with that in the proper way to really ensure that our community knows and understands that violent criminals are being held accountable. I think it's important.
Governor Greg Abbott touted the state and the Dallas region for attracting new businesses to the Lone Star State. But at the Dallas Regional Chamber's luncheon in Dallas this week, Abbott said the state needs a new economic development program to keep Texas ahead of the other states.
For those who want to write anything down, House Bill 5 is a proposal that's out there on the table. There will be more proposals that will surface. We need to make sure that even though Chapter 313, that some of you know what I'm talking about when I say that, even though 313 is now gone, there's no reason why we cannot replace it with a similarly effective tool that actually is more strategic for the future of our state, but also ensures that we will have the deal closing funds that are necessary to make sure Texas will continue to lead the country. And I cannot emphasize enough the need for this. Even with Chapter 313, even with all the things we have going for us in the state of Texas, even with Texas economically and tax-wise, et cetera, being far superior to bad for business states like New York, Texas lost to New York an enormous semiconductor facility. And they chose New York because New York was willing to give them more money. Anybody who thinks this economic development happens just because we're Texas or for reasons that have no science and no math behind it, they're completely wrong. We need more and better economic development closing tools if we're just going to be able to compete with the likes of New York, let alone the better structured states like Tennessee and Florida and Arizona and Ohio and others. So we have a massive challenge ahead of us. But it's a mistake also to think you don't have a role in it. The truth of the matter is you have a very powerful role. You have a say whether or not those economic development tools are going to pass. You have a state representative and you have a state senator. And anybody who does not make a phone call to your state representative or state senator, you're ceding to the voices against economic development, the power and the potential of it not passing. Everyone has, in this room, you're busy. Everyone in this room has 5 minutes you can take out of your day over the next 2 weeks. You should take 5 minutes out of your day to call your state representative and state senator. If you believe economic development tools are needed, you have the right and the necessity to be involved in that process.
We'll be watching to see how legislation on this issue advances through the state legislature. That's Eye on Politics for this week. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jack Fink. You're watching CBS News Texas.